Hey everybody, this is Tracy here with another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap American Crime Season 3, Episode 3. So in this episode, Luis arrives at the Hesby farm and learns the truth about his son's tragic end. And after a deep and revealing conversation, Jeanette and JD attend a workers' rally. So the show opens with a female migrant worker being raped in the fields by Diego, and Coy sees what's going on but doesn't say anything. He just walks away after a brief stare off with Diego. The scene moves over to the shelter and we see Shay getting acclimated. She has to give a urine sample for drug testing. Then we see her and some other girls taken over to like this industrial sized kitchen. Not sure if it's the kitchen for the shelter or if they're doing work at another location, but they're cleaning the kitchen, like scrubbing it down, mopping, cleaning up all the equipment. And then the next scene we have her and she's at chapel, and the lady who's leading the chapel, she is kind of preaching from the Bible in like a cult kind of way, not in an encouraging and reassuring way. She's sort of like making them feel as though their actions has caused them to be in this situation and that they are almost being punished, for not following God's word, So I don't know what that was all about, or if Kamara even know that this type of thing is taking place. Then we have Jeanette, and she's on the phone with Carson, and she took some pictures when she was out at the migrant camp. And so she sent him the pictures, and Carson is not happy about it. But, she's trying to get him to understand the inhumane conditions that the migrant workers are living in and actually died in. But Carson treats her like she's wrong for caring and asks why she does this to herself. And then he continues to maintain that the fire was not on the farm. Remember he was doing that in the last episode. So later that day, Carson tells Jeanette that he spoke to JD and Lorianne, and they have agreed to review their policies on the migrants and write up some new procedures. When Jeanette offers to help, Carson says no, and she explains that she has nothing to do, with his dad being ill, that she can tell that everybody is under a lot of pressure and that they're stressed out, and she just since she has all this time on her hands, she just wants to help out in any way that she can. So Carson says that he'll talk to JD and see if he needs any help, but he doesn't want the issue to impact their marriage or come between the two of them. Back at the farm, Diego sees Isaac out in the fields talking to Coy, and the two get into an argument about Isaac and his friendship with Coy. So Diego believes that Isaac is being too soft on the white boy and wants to know why Isaac cares so much about him. And then he also tells Isaac that if he's always talking to Coy, then that means that Coy isn't getting any work done. And he tells Isaac that he saw Coy snooping around earlier in the morning, but Isaac lets him know that he told Coy to come in early and help, I can't remember what he was going to help irrigate, I think he said, irrigate the crops. And, he would pay him some extra money. And this really pissed Diego off because he was like, who gave you permission to be offering anybody extra money or to be paying anybody, but Isaac is sort of like, what's the big deal? Why are you like all over this kid? And so he tells Isaac that Coy is nothing but a junkie and he doesn't have the right to pay him or give him extra work. So Diego, he basically has no use for Coy, and this will prove to be a point of contention between him and Isaac later on in the show. Luis is asking around, asking one of the workers at the farm, about Teo, if he's seen Teo. And the worker tells him to be careful in front of the overseers, and to put the picture of Teo away and watch what he's doing. But he promises to ask around and see if anybody knows anything, and he'll let Luis know. So in the fields, the worker comes over and he has another guy with him, and the guy says that he remembers Teo. And the guy tells Luis that someone named Jorge runs the house the houses for the single men. So I guess they have like a camp for the women, camp for the men, and then camp for families. I'm assuming. And so he says that the Jorge guy would probably have more information. And then he also tells Luis that he can find Jorge late at night over at the labor camp. Then we have a scene later that night with Coy and Isaac. And Coy is telling Isaac stories about how he has OD'd and died at least like 5 or 6 times before on drugs. And so Isaac seems to be really intrigued by the stories, and he asks Coy to tell him more. So then Coy goes on to say that dying was like a high within itself, and that he and his friends started ODing closer to the fire station so that the paramedics could get to them quicker and revive them, and they were using some drug kind of Norcan or Norcam. So Isaac educates Coy on his white privilege, and he tells him that, you know, when crack cocaine was prevalent in the inner cities, that there was no drug to revive the blacks and the Muslims, and that they just died in the streets from their overdoses. And now that white kids have heroin, that this is suddenly, you know, there's suddenly a magic treatment to save their lives, whereas, you know, there was nothing for minorities. And Isaac is annoyed that Coy doesn't get it, and Coy then starts mouthing off about how hard his life is and how he's just really trying, and that he doesn't see what Isaac does as being that hard, you know, and he's really getting over. And then he even goes so far as to say that he sees a lot of things that are happening around on the farm, but he doesn't see Isaac doing anything about it. So kind of miss him with all the, you know, being conscious about, you know, what's happening to people that are underprivileged and, you know, not being treated fairly. So Isaac gets up and starts to walk away, but then he stops and comes back, and then he hands Coy some money. And when Coy reaches for the money, Isaac throws the money at him, you know, which is sort of like a very disrespectful thing. Like when people, you pay for your goods at the store, and then the clerk like slides the money back to you on the counter and won't put it in your hand. You know, that's like a really big sign of disrespect. In group therapy, one of the male teens is telling a story about how John almost killed him, and then Shay raises her hand and she shares that she's gone through some similar things, and she says her dad's girlfriend forced her to have an abortion because she thought that the only reason Shay got pregnant was for the attention. And then she also tells the group that she misses Billy, and that she often fantasizes that, so when she was pregnant before and this pregnancy now, neither one of those were from Billy, but she believes that if she was to get pregnant by Billy, that the two of them could be together, and, you know, they would have like this relationship together. So she's just really delusional about what Billy means to her, and, you know, everyone in the room is looking at her like she's crazy, but then the counselor who's in the room, you know, thanks her for her honesty. So then we have a scene outside after the counseling session, and it's Shay and a couple of the other participants, and one of them notices that Shay has a phone. So then we have a scene later on in the show where the counselor has called Kamara out, you know, to deal with the issue with the phone. Remember, they have zero tolerance for electronic gadgets leaving the campus, and I think they can't have visitors. So they're pretty much ready to kick Shay out of the program because she had the phone. But then Kamara pleads with them, you know, to give her another chance. And so she asks the counselor if she can talk to Shay in private. So Shay lets them know that she didn't bring the phone with her, that she stole the phone from one of the counselors or one of the other workers that she had interacted with. And so Kamara lets her know that she has to take the phone back to whoever it was that she stole it from. But she's flipping through the phone and asks Shay, you know, who did you call on the phone? But Shay lets her know that she didn't call anyone, that she took the phone because she wanted to take pictures. And when Kamara asks her, well, what are the pictures of? Shay says she doesn't know what the pictures are of, that they're just beautiful images. So I was really confused with that scene, because I'm thinking if she took the pictures, surely she knows what she was taking pictures of. So I didn't understand that whole thing. Then Kamara goes over to visit Reggie, and they are discussing, you know, him being the sperm donor, but he tells her that he gave it a lot of thought, but he just can't do it. And Kamara immediately thinks that his wife Denise said that, you know, he couldn't be the sperm donor for her, but he lets her know that Denise was okay with it, but the decision was his, and he explains that he can have a baby with someone that he cares about and not be a part of the child's life. And he tells her that being a parent, is a lifetime commitment. And so the two go back and forth, and what it boils down to is that Reggie knows how strenuous her life is and how committed she is to the work that she does. And he just doesn't feel that Kamara could be a full-time mother to the child. And he even asks her, like, what happens if the baby's at daycare and then you get a call to go save one of these kids? Like, what happens to the baby, and, what are you going to choose to do? And so Kamara breaks down and tells him, what she feels like when she sees other people with babies, and how she wants to have a baby and someone to love her unconditionally. And Reggie says that he empathizes with what she's going through, but he just can't father a child with her. And he offers to help her pay the financial fees of continuing the treatments, but that's the best that he can do. So then we have Kamara, and she's at a drugstore, and she sees an interaction between a girl and a guy. And when the guy walks away, she bumps into the girl, and then, she's like, oh, excuse me. And during that little brief interaction, she hands the girl a card, which basically says, if you need help, call us and we can get you out of the situation. So then the scene goes over to Jeanette, and she is there to visit with JD. And JD tells her that Carson called and said that she was looking for work, but then Jeanette was like, no. She mentioned that Carson had told her that JD and Lorianne were looking into reviewing the policies and procedures, and she wanted to know if she could help in any kind of way. But you could tell by the look on JD's face that he has no clue what she's talking about. But to save face, he tells her that Lorianne has already taken care of, the policies and the procedures. Then Jeanette pulls out the pictures to show him, but JD, doesn't want to look at them. And he tells her that, since he has been on the farm since he was a child, and that he's seen everything that she has on those pictures before, and that there has been many fires and many deaths in the years that he's been there. And so it's nothing new to him, and that, nothing's going to change. And so JD says that he should be running the farm, and Jeanette counters that if he gets himself cleaned up, that maybe Lorianne, would trust him more. And JD's kind of looking at her, like, what are you talking about? And then she tells him that she knows addiction when she sees it, and that if he wants to do better and get better, that she's willing to help him, that he just needs to let her know what she can do. So then we have another scene with Kamara, and she goes to visit Shay, and I guess she was at the drugstore buying Shay one of those throwaway telephones, because she gives her a phone and tells her to hide it, and to hide it good. Don't let anybody know that she has the phone. And so I guess Kamara is looking at it as if taking the pictures makes Shay feel better about herself and keeps her content. Then she wants to do whatever she can to keep her there at that shelter to make sure that she testifies against Billy. So over at the labor camp, Luis walks up on a group of guys, and I can't remember if they were playing cards or shooting craps or what they were doing, but he asks, but he tells them that he's looking for a guy named Jorge. So one guy speaks up, so I'm assuming he's Jorge. And so he tells them that he's looking for work. And then Jorge asks if he has money. And when he says yes, he takes him to the sleeping quarters and tells him that it's $200 a week. And then, of course, Luis is looking around like, damn, y'all just getting over on everybody. But then Luis pulls out a picture of Teo, and he says that he heard that he was staying there. Then Jorge says that Luis says he's not a drug dealer. He's not good at picking crops. So exactly what is it that he does? And then Luis replies that he's an accountant. And then Jorge asks if Teo owes him money, and Jorge says that he remembers Teo and wants to show Luis something, and then he tells him to stay put and he'll be right back. But of course, Luis is like, what's going on? Like, what are you up to? And he's kind of hesitant. But Jorge says, wait, I'll be right back. So Luis realizes that something isn't right, and then all of a sudden someone grabs him from behind, and then Jorge comes back and he asks him, why is he looking for the boy, and that Teo left owing him money, so he wants to know what's going on. And then a woman appears and orders the guys to let Luis go, and she asks him, why is he looking for Teo? So the frustration is apparent, with Luis. And so he cries out and says that Teo is his son and he just wants answers, that he needs to know where he's at, and what happened to him. And then he accuses the three of not caring about anybody and only wanting money for themselves. The woman tells him that Teo was there a few months ago but disappeared. He became involved with a Nahato girl named Itzel. So then once Luis got that information, he just walked away from the three of them. And then Luis goes over to a camp, and then he walks up to a bus and he's banging on the door and he's screaming out, that he's looking for Teo. Where's Teo? Does anybody know where he's at? And so a guy comes out and tells him that Teo isn't there. And then Luis is basically saying, I'm his father. Let him know that I'm not mad. I'm just here to bring him home and to make sure that he's safe. But the guy, tells him that Teo isn't there. So then Luis asks about Itzel, and he says that she isn't there either. But Luis says that, he came to talk and somebody's going to talk to him and tell him, gives him some answers. And so he pulls out some money and tells the guy to take it. But the guy says he doesn't want his money and walks away. And then Luis follows him, and they end up like at a camp with a bunch of tents. People are living in tents. And they go into one of the tents, and there's like a younger woman and an older woman and some small kids. And the woman is tending to a baby, and the baby is crying. And so, Luis and the guy, tell her why he's there. And so she gives the baby to the older woman and goes outside to talk to them. Outside, Luis pleads with her to tell him what happened to Teo. He doesn't care if it's good or bad. He just wants to know where his son is and what happened to him. So I'm assuming that this girl is Itzel because she says that Teo made her very happy, but the bosses didn't like it and they couldn't stand to see her smile. And so one day they dragged her out to the Green Motel. And then, Luis is like, what is the Green Motel? So basically it's what they call the fields. And when a woman is raped, and remember at the beginning of the show, Diego was raping a woman. That's how the show started out. And so Teo tried to defend her, but the boss became angry and dragged him off. And she says that that was the last time that she saw him and that she doesn't know what happened to Teo. So Luis asks, what's the boss's name? But the scene cuts away to Diego in the fields calling out to Isaac. So Diego shows Isaac that Coy is liking and, that his basket isn't full when he's bringing it over to dump the tomatoes out. So Coy, he starts whining again and says that he's trying, but Diego knocks the basket out of his hand. And when Isaac goes to help Coy, Diego says that Coy is Isaac's little bitch, but he needs to learn how to work on his own. So Coy picks up the tomatoes, but Diego kicks the basket over again, and then he does it like 2 or 3 more times. So Coy stands up to Diego and says that he's not going to pick it up again and that he's not dealing with this crap and that they could have it. And then he then turns to Isaac and puts him on the spot by telling him that he should do something, but all he does is just stand there and watch, these people being mistreated, knowing that it's wrong. And then he, stomps off. So then Diego looks to Isaac like, you're just going to let him talk to you like that? So Isaac jumps in his truck and goes after Coy. And then when he catches up with him, he jumps out of the truck and then he beats Coy up like really bad, like punching him in the face. And when he was down on the ground, he just started kicking him. And it was just a horrible scene. And meanwhile, Luis is looking on and probably thinking that the same thing happened to Teo. And then we see him kind of walk away. So the show ends with a room full of people listening to a speaker, and he's talking to them about, the conditions of the migrant workers and how they're being treated on the farms, and that, the farmers need to show a little more humanity. And then the scene goes over to Shay, and she's riding in a bus, I guess going from like the shelter to where they're cleaning up or whatever. And then it pans back to the room of people, and we see that JD and Jeanette are in the room listening to the speaker. So another great, powerful episode. Guys, let me know what you thought. Leave your comments below. Rate the video and subscribe to the channel. And you can do all of that below. And I hope that everyone has a terrific week. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.